What happens when one of Britain's most respected actors walks onto a daytime talk show expecting a friendly chat about his latest project, only to find himself ambushed by a host with an agenda? In just 34 seconds, a simple question about his northern roots would spiral into one of the most shocking confrontations ever broadcast on live television, exposing the ugly side of celebrity interviews and leaving viewers absolutely speechless. Sean Bean settled into the bright orange sofa on the Loose Women set, his relaxed demeanor suggesting he expected nothing more than the usual promotional circuit banter. The studio audience applauded warmly as he exchanged pleasantries with the panel. Denise Welch sat at the head of the table, flanked by Nadia Sawalha, Kay Adams, and Jane Moore. The lights were hot, the cameras rolling, and everything seemed perfectly normal. Denise leaned forward with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sean, lovely to have you here. Now, before we talk about your new series, I have to ask. You're from Sheffield, born and bred, working class roots. Do you ever feel like you've betrayed that background by playing all these posh characters and living in your fancy house?" The studio fell silent. Sean's smile faltered for just a moment. It was a loaded question, dressed up as casual interests, but the accusation underneath was clear. "I wouldn't say betrayed, no," Sean replied carefully, his Yorkshire accent still present despite decades in the industry. "I'm an actor. I play characters. That's the job. I'm still the same person I always was." Nadia shifted uncomfortably in her seat, sensing the tension. Jane Moore looked down at her notes, but Denise wasn't finished. "Yes, but you have to admit, there's something a bit off about someone from your background swanning around in period dramas, pretending to be aristocracy. Don't you think working-class actors have a responsibility to stay true to their roots? To represent real people?" the audience murmured. A few gasps rippled through the crowd. Kay Adams jumped in, trying to redirect. "Well, Sean's played plenty of working-class characters. Isn't that right, Sean?" "I have." "Yes," Sean said, his jaw tightening slightly. "I've played soldiers, factory workers, miners. I've done Shakespeare, and I've done kitchen sink drama. That's what being an actor means. You don't just play yourself over and over." Denise waved her hand dismissively. "But come on, Sean. You live in a mansion now. You send your kids to private school. You're hardly one of the people anymore, are you? You've become exactly what you used to hate." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Nadia's eyes widened. Jane Moore finally looked up, her expression one of disbelief. Even the camera operators seemed to tense. Sean took a slow breath. "I don't know what you're trying to get at here, Denise. I worked hard to get where I am. I started with nothing. I earned everything I have, and I've never forgotten where I came from." "Haven't you, though?" Denise pressed, leaning even further forward. "Because from where I'm sitting, you look like every other celebrity who's forgotten their roots the moment they got a bit of success. You're a sellout, basically." Admit it, the word hung there. Sellout, on live television. Directed at a man who'd spent 40 years building a career on talent and grit. Kay Adams tried again. "Denise, I think that's a bit harsh. Sean's got nothing to prove to anyone. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Denise shot back, not taking her eyes off Sean. "These actors from working-class backgrounds, they get a bit of money, and suddenly they're too good for their own people. They start talking differently, acting differently. It's embarrassing." Nadia finally spoke up. "I don't think that's fair. Success doesn't mean you've abandoned your background." But Denise ignored her. "Sean, tell me, honestly, when was the last time you went back to Sheffield and spent time with real working-class people? Not for a photo opportunity, but actually spent time with them?" Sean's face had gone from surprise to angry. His hands gripped the arms of the sofa. "I visit Sheffield regularly, actually. Not that I need to justify my personal life to you." "See, that's exactly the attitude I'm talking about," Denise said, her voice rising. "You can't even answer a simple question without getting defensive. That tells me everything I need to know." "You're not asking questions," Sean said, his voice low and controlled. "You're making accusations." "There's a difference." Jane Moore tried to intervene. "Maybe we should talk about the new series." "Sean, you play a detective, is that right?" But Denise talked right over her. "I'm making observations, Sean, observations that a lot of people share. You've changed. You've left your people behind. And now you come on shows like this, pretending to be humble, when really you're just here to flog your latest project to the same working-class people you've abandoned." The studio audience gasped audibly this time. Several people looked genuinely shocked. Nadia shook her head, clearly uncomfortable. Kay Adams put her hand up as if to physically stop Denise from continuing. Sean's face flushed red. That is completely out of order. You don't know me. You don't know my life. You've invited me here to talk about my work, and instead you're sitting there insulting me based on your own assumptions and prejudices. Prejudices? Denise laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Oh, that's rich. I'm prejudiced now because I'm calling out your hypocrisy? You're being incredibly rude, Sean said, his voice rising now. I came here in good faith. I've done nothing to deserve this. Nadia tried once more. Denise, maybe we should move on. This is getting uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? Denise turned to Nadia. Why, because someone's finally telling the truth? Because I'm not fawning over him like everyone else does? Because you're being needlessly cruel, Nadia replied, surprising everyone with her directness. Sean's a guest. You're treating him like he's on trial. Denise turned back to Sean. If you can't handle a few tough questions, maybe you shouldn't come on talk shows. This is what we do here. We have real conversations. We don't just sit around praising celebrities. Tough questions? Sean's voice was incredulous now. You've called me a sellout, suggested I've betrayed my background, accused me of abandoning working-class people, and questioned my entire character. That's not tough questions. That's a character assassination. Kay Adams nodded. He's right, Denise. This has gone too far. But Denise was on a roll, her face animated, her voice getting louder. Oh, so now I'm the bad guy for speaking truth to power? For not treating actors like they're gods? Who can't be criticized? There's criticism, and then there's what you're doing, Sean said, standing up slightly before sitting back down, clearly agitated. What you're doing is creating a narrative that doesn't exist. You've decided who I am without knowing anything about me. I know enough, Denise said smugly. I know you've made millions playing heroes while real working-class people struggle. I know you live in luxury while pretending to be one of us in interviews. I know you're a hypocrite. That was it, the final straw. Sean stood up fully this time, his body language radiating barely controlled anger. Right, that's enough. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. The studio went completely silent. Even Denise seemed momentarily taken aback. Jane Moore's mouth fell open. Nadia looked between Sean and Denise, clearly unsure what to do. Oh, so you're leaving? Denise recovered quickly, her tone mocking. Can't handle the heat, so you're walking out? Very mature, Sean. Very professional. Professional? Sean's voice was loud now, filling the studio. You want to talk about professional? A professional interviewer doesn't ambush their guests. A professional interviewer doesn't spend the entire interview insulting someone. You've been disrespectful from the moment I sat down, and I'm not going to sit here and take it anymore. Kay Adams stood up. Sean, please, sit down. We can sort this out. But Sean was already removing his microphone. There's nothing to sort out. She's made it clear what she thinks of me, and I'm not interested in being her punching bag for entertainment. Denise laughed again, that same sharp sound. This is brilliant. Walking off because you can't answer a few simple questions about your privilege. The audience can see right through you. The audience can see right through you? Sean shot back, pointing at Denise. They can see you're a bully who gets her kicks from attacking people on live television. You're not some champion of the working class. You're just mean. Nadia stood up now too. Sean, I'm so sorry. This shouldn't have happened. It's not your fault, Sean said, his voice softer when addressing Nadia. Then he turned back to Denise. You should be ashamed of yourself. This isn't journalism. This isn't even entertainment. This is just cruel. Denise stood up, facing Sean across the coffee table. Don't you dare lecture me about cruelty. I'm trying to hold people like you accountable. People who profit off their working-class image while living like royalty. People like me? Sean's voice was dangerously quiet now. You don't know anything about people like me. You sit here in your studio, making judgments, stirring up controversy for ratings. You're not holding anyone accountable. You're just being nasty because you think it makes good television. Jane Moore finally stood. Both of you, please, let's calm down. I am calm, Sean said, though his shaking hands suggested otherwise. I'm calmly leaving. I'm calmly walking off this set because I refuse to be disrespected like this. Fine, leave, Denise said, crossing her arms. Run away. That's what people like you do when things get difficult. You run back to your mansions and your privilege. Sean shook his head, a look of disgust crossing his face. You're unbelievable. You really think you're the hero in this scenario, don't you? You think the viewers at home are watching this and agreeing with you? I think the viewers appreciate honesty, Denise replied. Something you clearly can't handle. Honesty? Sean's voice rose again. You wouldn't know honesty if it hit you in the face. You've constructed this entire fantasy about who I am based on nothing but your own bitter assumptions. That's not honesty. That's delusion. The other panelists looked mortified. Kay Adams had her head in her hands. Nadia was visibly upset, her eyes glistening. Jane Moore stood frozen, clearly not knowing how to intervene. Bitter? Denise's face twisted. I'm not the one storming off set because I can't handle a conversation. This isn't a conversation, Sean said, his voice echoing through the studio now. A conversation requires two people actually listening to each other. You've done nothing but attack me from the moment I arrived. You had your agenda before I even walked through that door. My agenda is calling out hypocrisy, Denise insisted. If that makes you uncomfortable, that's your problem, not mine. Sean picked up his jacket from the back of the sofa. You know what makes me uncomfortable? The fact that people like you have platforms to spread this kind of toxicity. The fact that you think attacking someone on live television makes you brave or important. I'm not attacking you, Denise said, though her aggressive posture and tone suggested otherwise. I'm asking difficult questions that other people are too scared to ask. You're hiding behind that excuse, Sean replied, putting his jacket on. You're hiding behind this idea that you're some fearless truth-teller when really you're just being cruel for the sake of it. Nadia stepped forward. Sean, on behalf of all of us, I apologize. This is not how guests should be treated. Thank you, Nadia, Sean said, his anger softening slightly when he looked at her. You've been nothing but kind. But I can't stay here. I won't give her the satisfaction of continuing this circus, Denise snorted. Circus? You're the one making a scene. I'm making a scene? Sean's voice was incredulous. You've spent 20 minutes insulting me, questioning my character, calling me a hypocrite and a sellout, and I'm the one making a scene because I'm refusing to accept it? You're making a scene because you're a diva who can't handle criticism, Denise said, her voice dripping with contempt. There's criticism, and then there's what you're doing, Sean repeated, his voice heavy with frustration. What you're doing is personal, what you're doing is nasty, and what you're doing says far more about you than it does about me. Kay Adams tried one last time. Please, both of you, let's just take a breath. We can end this civilly. She doesn't want civil, Sean said, gesturing at Denise. She wants drama. She wants conflict. Well, congratulations, Denise. You got what you wanted. You pushed and pushed until I had enough. Are you happy now? I'm happy that people are seeing the real you, Denise replied. The you that can't handle being challenged. The you that throws tantrums when things don't go your way. Challenged? Sean's laugh was bitter. Is that what you call this? I call it bullying. I call it unprofessional. I call it disgraceful. Jane Moore stepped between them. Sean, if you want to leave, that's your choice. But maybe we could end this more positively? Sean looked at Jane, then at Nadia and Kay, who both looked mortified by the whole situation. Then he looked back at Denise, who stood with her arms still crossed, a defiant expression on her face. There's nothing positive about this, Sean said quietly. She's made sure of that. She came into this with her mind made up about who I am, and nothing I could have said would have changed that. So yes, I'm leaving, because I have too much respect for myself to sit here and be treated like this. Such a victim, Denise muttered, just loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Sean froze. He turned slowly back to face her. A victim? You think standing up for myself makes me a victim? You think refusing to be disrespected makes me weak? I think walking off makes you look guilty, Denise said. If you had nothing to hide, you'd stay and defend yourself. I have been defending myself, Sean said, his voice rising again. For 20 minutes, I've been defending myself against your relentless attacks. But you're not interested in my defense. You're not interested in the truth. You're only interested in your narrative. Nadia moved closer to Sean. Please, ignore her. She's just trying to get a reaction. She's got a reaction, Sean said, though his voice was calmer now. She's got the reaction of a man who's had enough. And you know what? I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed of walking away from someone who's treating me badly. Denise laughed. How noble, the brave actor walking away from the mean talk show host. You'll dine out on this story for years, won't you? I won't talk about this at all, Sean replied, because giving you any more attention is more than you deserve. You're not worth my energy, Denise. You're not worth anyone's energy. There it is, Denise said triumphantly. The real Sean Bean. Arrogant, superior, looking down on the rest of us. Looking down? Sean's voice was quiet but intense. I'm not. The one who's spent this entire interview trying to make someone else feel small. I'm not the one who's used their position to bully a guest. That's all you, Denise. That's all you. Kay Adams put her hand on Denise's arm. Denise, please, let him go. This has gone far enough. But Denise shook her off. He can go. He can run back to his mansion and his privilege. But the viewers will remember this. They'll remember how he couldn't handle a few tough questions. They'll remember how you treated a guest. Sean corrected. They'll remember your cruelty, your arrogance, your complete lack of respect for another human being. He turned to the audience, who sat in stunned silence. I apologize to all of you for this. You came here expecting a pleasant afternoon show, and instead, you got this. That's not my fault, but I'm sorry you had to witness it. Several audience members nodded. A few even clapped softly, quickly stifled by the awkward atmosphere. Sean looked at the remaining panelists. Nadia, Kay, Jane, thank you for trying. I appreciate your attempts to make this right, but some things can't be fixed. He headed toward the side of the set where the exit was. Denise called after him. That's right, walk away. Just like you walked away from your roots. Sean stopped. For a moment, it looked like he might turn around, might come back for one final confrontation. The entire studio held its breath. The camera zoomed in on his back, capturing the tension in his shoulders. But he didn't turn around. Instead, he simply raised his hand in a dismissive wave and kept walking. Unbelievable, Denise said to the cameras. Absolutely unbelievable. Well, there you have it, everyone. Sean Bean, ladies and gentlemen, can't handle the truth. Nadia turned on her. Denise, what were you thinking? That was horrible. I was thinking someone needed to hold him accountable, Denise replied defensively. Accountable for what? Kay Adams demanded. For being successful? For working hard and making something of himself? What exactly did he do wrong? He's a hypocrite, Denise insisted, but her voice had lost some of its conviction. He's a human being, Jane Moore said quietly. A human being you just humiliated on live television. The audience murmured in agreement. Denise looked around, perhaps realizing for the first time that the room wasn't on her side. Oh, come on. Don't tell me you're all buying his wounded act. It wasn't an act, Nadia said firmly. You were cruel, Denise. There's no other word for it. You were needlessly, deliberately cruel. I was doing my job. Denise protested. Your job is to interview guests, Kay said. Not to attack them, not to insult them, not to drive them off the set. Denise looked at the cameras, trying to regain control. Well, this has certainly been dramatic. We'll take a quick break and be back with more loose women after this. But the damage was done. As the cameras cut away, the studio remained in shocked silence. The audience members talked among themselves, many shaking their heads. The other panelists refused to look at Denise. Backstage, Sean was removing the last of his microphone equipment when several crew members approached him. Are you all right? One asked. I've been better, Sean admitted, but I'll be fine. I'm just glad I left when I did. Another minute, and I might have said something I'd really regret. For what it's worth, another crew member said quietly, we all thought she was completely out of line. That was painful to watch. Sean nodded his thanks. He could hear the muffled sounds of the studio through the walls, could hear Denise's voice trying to maintain control of the show, trying to move on as if nothing had happened. But something had happened, something that would be talked about and analyzed and replayed. A moment where a respected actor had been pushed too far by a host who seemed to think cruelty equaled honesty, who mistook aggression for bravery. Sean took a deep breath, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the exit. He'd come to talk about his work, to connect with viewers, to do the promotional circuit that every actor does. Instead, he'd been subjected to a public interrogation based on nothing but assumptions and prejudice. As he pushed open the door to leave, he could still hear the show continuing behind him, could hear Denise's voice, trying to justify what had happened, trying to paint herself as the brave truth-teller standing up to celebrity privilege. But Sean knew better, and he suspected, hoped, that the viewers did too. Because what had happened on that stage wasn't brave. It wasn't honest. It wasn't holding anyone accountable. It was simply one person deciding they had the right to tear another person down, and doing so with relish. It was the ugly side of talk show television, where controversy trumps conversation, and humiliation passes for entertainment. Sean walked out into the London afternoon, leaving the studio behind. He'd survived battles in Middle-earth, faced down death in Game of Thrones, and played countless heroes and villains. But nothing in his acting career had prepared him for the reality of being ambushed by someone who was supposed to be on his side, someone who was supposed to facilitate a conversation, not weaponize it. The door closed behind him with a soft click, marking the end of one of the most uncomfortable interviews in British television history. An interview that had started with a seemingly innocent question about his background and had spiraled into a full-blown confrontation that neither the studio audience, the viewing public, nor Sean himself would soon forget.